Hello and welcome. I'm here today with the ASUS ROG Zephyrus G16. Last year, in 2023, ASUS decided to skip over this laptop and only provided spec bumps from the 2022 model year when it was introduced. That's to say that none of the issues we had with the Zephyrus G16 were addressed. Instead, ASUS focused on a redesign of the M16, the Intel counterpart to the G16. The Zephyrus G16 was a fan favorite because of the AMD CPUs that it offered, all the rage in 2022. Well, this year ASUS has finally given the G16 the attention it deserved. We have a full new CNC milled aluminum chassis at only 1.49 centimeters thick and 1.89 kilograms, or just over 4 pounds. But has this trade-off of form over function been worth it, or has ASUS compromised on the essentials of a great gaming laptop? Before we begin, please click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when there's new content available here. Let's jump in and find out. One thing worth pointing out here is that this year the AMD CPU options are completely gone from the Zephyrus G16, the fan favorite and why we really enjoyed the Zephyrus G16 when it was revealed in 2022. That said, this year we have a Meteor Lake 9 Ultra 185H processor that's 16 cores and 22 threads. We have much faster 7400 megatransfers per second, 32 gigabytes of RAM, although this is soldered on this device, and we have a 4060 8 gigabyte, but this one is only 85 watts for nominal TGP, plus the 15 watts of dynamic boost for a total max TGP of 100 watts on this device. And of course, the standout feature for the Zephyrus 16 and the absolute highlight is that 16-inch OLED display that's capable of 500 nits of brightness, has 100% DCI-P3 coverage, 240 Hz and 0.2 milliseconds with G-Sync for an absolutely crushing gaming experience. The Zephyrus series of laptops are always at the top end of the ASUS stack. That means we've got here the most premium build quality, and this Zephyrus G16 is no slouch. In 2024, we've seen a full redesign now on the Zephyrus G16. We've got an all-metal CNC milled aluminum body. It's only 1.49 centimeters thick. That means it's nice and slim and can slip into any bag quite easily. And we've got a polished aluminum kind of look here. It's very subtle, very little branding, and we do not have any colored accents or highlights or flares that may cause this to give off a very gamery vibe. In fact, this laptop is so low-key that I can fit into pretty much any environment and is a good candidate for just about anybody looking for a really nice premium styled laptop that can do it all. That said, we also have the anime matrix this year being replaced by this slash lighting. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Although we do have still a little bit of branding, but in a more subtle manner on the top lid in the right hand corner. That said, we also have got some sticker works here, nice and square, to see that there's G-Sync on board. We've got NVIDIA graphics, and we've got the new 14th generation Intel Core Ultra 9, which is the Meteor Lake CPUs with AI processing and the NPUs on board. We'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. The bottom panel is also aluminum here. It's polished and nicely slim. We also have some excellent texturing on the bottom, as well as these ventilation cutouts, and we can see these slots are actually quite small, and they're going to contribute to a little bit of heating issues later on. We'll talk more about that in a separate video that focuses on the thermal performance and the fan noise from this device. The port offering is a little bit slim, although ASUS has managed to include all of the essential ports. We begin with a proprietary AC power adapter jack from left to right. We have an HDMI 2.1 port attached to that RTX 4060 inside with the GPU. We also have a Thunderbolt 4 port, which also offers USB Type-C DisplayPort Alt mode with USB power delivery. We have a USB Type-A port that is of the USB 3.2 Gen 2 standard. And finally, we have a microphone and headphone combo jack. On the right-hand side, we start from the left to right again. We have a full-size UHS 2 SD card slot. We'll look at the performance of the copying speeds later. We also have another USB Type 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port, and we have an additional USB Type-C port. This one also offers the DisplayPort Alt mode, so you can use that for display and power delivery for up to 100 watts of USB Type-C charging. Upon opening the device here, we're greeted to a beautiful keyboard deck. That polished aluminum surface here makes a comeback, and this is fairly resistant to fingerprints, unless you have very oily or greasy hands. That said, we have a centered QWERTY keyboard on the Zephyrus G16. I think this is the preferable manner for a keyboard on a 16-inch device. And we have all of the functions here, including secondary functions using the FN key. This makes it easy to do all of your programming and development efforts and your daily work along with any gaming activities. Of course, being a gaming keyboard, we've got 1.7 millimeters of travel distance, and we've got 240 hertz polling rates and key rollover with 20 million clicks on the keyboard keys. And we also have a little slight texturing on the keys there. Plus, we have the dedicated media keys in typical ASUS style above the QWERTY keyboard. Nice to see those make a presence, and they are totally customizable using the Armoury Crate software. As we move on to RGB here, we've got an excellent RGB showing. Nice and classy, I would say, since this is pared down. It's not too gaudy. You're not going to be upsetting anybody, even in a boardroom, if you do decide to leave the RGB on. And as we see here, that in the dark, the lights do get quite bright. There's 3 levels of brightness adjustment for the RGB: low, medium, and high. And of course, you have off as an option if you want to go covert. And finally, if we look at the RGB close-up here, it has a very nice effect. The light shining around the keys is actually quite enjoyable, and it looks, as I mentioned earlier, very classy. I don't think anybody's going to be upset at this RGB implementation. As for the touchpad, it's nice to see a much larger touchpad on this device. That said, though, ASUS has not stated anything about the actual trackpad being a glass surface or not. It feels like plastic to me, but a solid, smooth plastic surface, easy to scroll, easy to do all of your gestures, and from what I can see in the device manager, it looks like we're using Microsoft Windows precision drivers for this device. Not much else to say here, but the trackpad does its job and does it well. Looking at the display here, we begin with a one-hand open test, and we can see here it is possible, but you have to be a little bit careful and open it a little bit slowly. And then we can see here that the display does wobble quite a bit. This hinge is not as stiff as I would have liked, but alas, this is a trade-off that you have to make. When you're typing, though, it's not as bad of an issue. And then being that this is an OLED display means we have a glass covering, so it is quite reflective. I've tried to angle the lights as much as possible here, but nonetheless, you can see that there is visible glare. And a backlight bleed test reveals the beauty of that OLED display. We have absolutely zero backlight bleed visible in any environment. I tested this with various different exposures on my camera just to be sure, and it is absolutely stunning. We have that 1,000,000 to 1 contrast ratio for infinite and real true dark blacks. This ROG OLED Nebula display is rated for 500 nits brightness, and as you can see here, we scale up from the 0 level of brightness, 0%, all the way up to 100%, and then back down that this screen is quite vivid. Gone are the days of the 250 and 300 nit OLEDs. We've got a sufficient brightness here to really enjoy and let those games pop. And as we zoom in here, we can see the subpixel structure, and we can also see that the text clarity has been significantly improved, and gone are the days where we had OLED displays on laptops, but the text being a little bit blurry, particularly on the ultra-wides. This display is solid. And another reason to look at an OLED display for your next gaming laptop is the refresh rate. At 0.2 milliseconds, there is basically imperceptible screen lag in terms of refresh rates. When you're gaming, so you're going to get the smoothest, buttery, crisp gameplay. For connectivity and communications, we've got Intel's Wi-Fi 6E on board here with the AX211 chip. It's a little bit sad here to see that ASUS decided not to jump on the Wi-Fi 7 bandwagon. As for Bluetooth, we've got version 5.3. Another shame here as everybody else is moving over to the 5.4 standard. Not a big difference, but it is nonetheless nice to see everybody on the latest generation. As for the coffee speeds with the Wi-Fi test, because I do not have a Wi-Fi or greater than Wi-Fi 6 standard for my router, you're going to get about 25 to 27 megabytes per second. For storage, the ASUS Zephyrus G16 is equipped with a Western Digital 1000 gigabyte or 1 terabyte SSD drive of the Gen 4 PCIe variety. Nice to see very fast speeds here as well. The performance is pretty good. The write speeds are way up there with right up to the maximum standard of 7000 megabytes per second. The write speed could have been a little bit better, although no complaints here. And if you look at the IOPS performance here using ASSD, I think this device scores quite well. And also, ASUS has provided us with a UHS 2 standard SD card of the full size variety. Love to see this on every single laptop. It really routes all of your ports and makes the longevity of the laptop that much greater. If we look here at the copy test, though, of the performance from the SD card, keep in mind the UHS 2 is not the same speed as SD Express 7.0, which we saw on the Raider 16 just recently. That said, though, with a proper UHS 2 rated card, which I am using here, we're going to get about 90 megabytes per second in terms of copy speeds. Not a bad performance overall, and love to see the fact that this device is not just tuned to gamers, but also to content creators and professionals as well. The Zephyrus G16 is equipped with a 1080p 30fps webcam center, flanked by IR cameras for Windows Hello authentication. This is a webcam test of the Zephyrus G16 for 2024. We've got a 1080p 30fps IR capable camera up front. That means we get Windows Hello authentication, and we've got 3 microphones on board this device. So nice to see a larger array of microphones. That means we get better quality for the microphones and the audio capture. In addition, thanks to that Meteor Lake CPU on board and the NPU on that package, we have AI noise canceling technology built in. That means right now, using the ASUS Armory Crate, I've got it set to only capture audio from a single presenter. That means only in this kind of region and zone here. So you should hear clear audio without any background noise, or at least very little and minimized background noise. Let me know what you think of the audio quality from the 3 microphones on board the Z16 and that 1080p 30fps webcam in the comments below. A 200-watt AC power adapter is provided with the Zephyrus G16 with a standard ATX connector. We also have a proprietary plug here that's used for the device. So the end that plugs into the laptop, it is reversible, but it is proprietary. Don't like that so much. And we also have USB Type-C power delivery from both sides of the laptop, considering we have USB Type-C ports on both ends. Love to see that. As for battery life, the ASUS Zephyrus G16 is equipped with a 90 watt-hour battery, a typical affair for most ASUS laptops, and we're claiming here all-day battery life. Although I think all these manufacturers make some very outlandish claims, but the reality is that you're going to see anywhere between 4 to 5 hours for typical use where you're doing multitasking. If you do just very light tasks such as just web surfing or web browsing, turn the brightness way down, turn the Bluetooth off, and don't use any of the wireless radios. You can extend this up to about 9 hours or so, but that is of course in the extreme circumstances. It is my hope that in 2024 we'll start to see better PC speakers, particularly on laptops, and looks like ASUS is paying attention here as well as some other manufacturers. We've got 6 speakers on the Zephyrus G16, 2 dual sides, and we also have woofers on board down to 100 Hz in terms of the bass frequency response, and it is not only audible but also noticeable when you have your hands rested on the device and are using it either to play music or during gaming. There's also a 3D mic array. This year we have 3 mics. Nice to see that. In order we're going to get better audio capture on this device. There's also Dolby Atmos on board as well. That means you're going to get some tuning for your sound profiles to get that immersion that you need whether you're gaming or enjoying your cinema experience. We also have AI noise cancellation that seems to work pretty well. It's in the webcam segment here. Check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. The G16 is powered by the new 14th generation Intel's Core Ultra 9 185H Meteor Lake CPU with a base clock of 2.5 GHz, and it seems to perform pretty well in this device, although these things do not compete with the higher end, the HX CPUs, which can run all the way up to 150 watts in terms of the CPU power and give you some excellent performance all the way up to 5.7 gigahertz that I've seen on the MSI Raider. Go check out that review to see those differences. That said, this is a 16 core and 22 thread part, a little bit different than the 24 core and 32 thread configurations. You're missing 2 less P cores, but we have the same number of cores there for the efficiency cores. That said, the benchmarks look pretty good. We've got 7-zip here, followed by Blender on the CPU benchmarks. Then we're following Cinebench. Good scores on both the single core and multi-core from Cinebench here. Nothing really to complain about, but this is still a significant step behind the HX CPUs. If you really need that CPU grunt, then you should be looking at those. If you're more comfortable with a well-rounded CPU and focus more on the AI, or you're looking forward to the AI capabilities of these laptops, then this is going to be a better bet for you. In the GPU department, this Zephyrus G16 is equipped with a RTX 4060 8GB GPU that is capable of 85 watts nominal TGP plus a 15 watts of dynamic boost for a total of 100 watts of GPU power. That said though, because of the power constraints in this laptop and only a 200 watt power supply, we don't really get up to those figures. The CPU hogs quite a bit of power. That means you're going to see about 80 to maybe 90 watts of maximum power. The GPU does dip into that power budget from the dynamic boost a little bit, but not that often. The overall graphics scores are good. Keep in mind that the Zephyrus G16 is being offered all the way up to the 4090 this year, but even those GPUs are only constrained up to 115 watts. So make sure you know what exactly you're getting into, because 100 watts RTX 4090 is quite different in performance versus 150 watt RTX 4090. That's before we even consider in the dynamic boost performance. For detailed gaming benchmarks, please check out the other video on my channel where I've dedicatedly done 19 games testing on this GPU at both the native QHD plus resolution that's 1600p as well as 1200p in a 16:10 aspect ratio. To conclude, the Zephyrus G16 brings beauty, an excellent form factor, and a drool-worthy design. I won't hesitate to say that it might be the best looking gaming laptop of 2024. But that's where things turned out to be a mixed bag. First, I want to mention the move away from AMD CPUs again. This is surprising since the AMD CPUs were precisely the reason we were fans of the Zephyrus G16 in the first place. Then, the focus on thinness and lightness has resulted in some major compromises. The aluminum chassis does soak up a lot of heat, and due to the form factor, this device is simply unable to cool even an 85-watt RTX 4060 GPU. It exhibits constant thermal throttling on both the CPU and the GPU in gaming. Now, that's not to say that it can't game. In fact, the gaming performance, if you don't focus on the metrics, is actually pretty good. With DLSS and frame generation wherever available, I was able to play most games at the native QHD plus resolution of that OLED display without issue. The issue arises as soon as you compare it to the next available gaming laptop with an RTX 4060 and see just how much performance is being left on the table. And if you factor in the price, it is hundreds of dollars more than more capable, although not as good looking, gaming laptops on the market right now. In fact, these reasons were so strong that they overshadowed the gorgeous OLED display for me and killed any excitement I had for this laptop after seeing the performance. However, the 4080 and 4090 equipped models come with vapor chamber cooling, so perhaps performance is a bit better there, although still constrained to 115 watts. If you're more concerned with overall looks, or you game casually but have deep pockets and can stomach the price, then this laptop is a great buy. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like this content, please click the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when there's new content available here. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.